All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 64th episode of The Get Down. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here.
Try to figure out a new way to say this every week, but it's, it gets real repetitive after a while.
I like it. I like it the way it is. I like to keep the intro. I feel more comfortable coming into it.
We know our cues and we know how to start now.
Right.
That one episode, I threw you off at the end.
Yeah,
man.
Set the tone early.
So we were supposed to have a guest this week. We didn't tease it last week, and I'm glad we didn't because we had to reschedule. Right. We're still going to have that person on, but this episode, you got just me and Gary today. I think we'll be able to persevere through here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, last minute things happen all the time. Just got to be ready for it and then pivot and go the other way. We're so used to that at this point in life that here we are. I wanted to make sure we get a pod out before you went away, and we have a couple of really good topics for today. Some things that you had brought up, some ongoings that we have behind the scenes. We won't keep this pretty general, but
yeah, but I think what we're going to talk about today, kind of everyone's going to have gone through it at some point if you've been a DJ. And I think it's good to talk about it now because we're ending the year, right? And venues are going to take managers and owners and decision makers are going to take some time off here in December. It's been crazy, and they're going to possibly reset and think about their entertainment. And can we be doing something different? Many times in January, things slow down a little bit. There is that like New Year's hangover. People do their no drinking for the first month of the year. Right. Everyone spent all their money on Christmas and New Year's. So what we've been alluding to, what we want to talk about first is what happens if you leave a venue for whatever reason. And down the line, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. That venue approaches you again and says, hey, how you been? We would love to start working with you again. So we kind of want to walk through that and kind of talk through it and explain, I guess, starting from how you leave a venue and then working your way through into how you rekindle a relationship, right?
Yeah, I think how you leave a place is a great place to start here. If you've been in the game for as long as we have, we've left countless places. And I think it's always important, and you'll agree with this, I'm sure, is to leave on good terms, right? We've talked about this in the past, never burn a bridge, wrote an article about it. And I think we've had an episode on it as well. But the reason why you never want to burn a bridge is for multiple reasons. You establish a relationship with a manager and or a venue and or an owner, and you never know what's going to come down the pipeline, right? Either management changes, somebody leaves, and then they come back to that venue, and you always want to leave in good graces just in case that this situation does arise. Like maybe the owner wants to have you back, but now you burnt the bridge with the manager that they had on staff, So you can be thrown many different situations when dealing with this, and any combination of situations, whether it's ownership and management, and you know what I mean, like even bar staff.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, right?
You really don't want to have negative ongoings with anybody in the industry, because you're going to cross paths again. So I think that's first and foremost, right? When you're leaving a venue, what are the important things? And I have a couple highlighted here, but I'm going to let you start. What are a couple things that you can do to make sure that you leave gracefully?
We talk about extending your DJ careers and having a long career. The easiest way to kill your DJ career is by burning bridges at the venues and with the people that you work with. It's just the easiest way. And if you want to keep your career going, you need to learn how to do this. And it's not easy. I think you can kind of tiptoe around it, but it's not an easy thing to do always. But I think just being pretty honest, you don't have to put all your cards on the table, but being pretty honest. A lot of times this is going to come down to a dispute over money or a dispute over the number of gigs. But I think at the end of the day, you really just have to make it plain and clear that this is your business, and you have to make the best decision for your business and for you, like, yes, you're working for all these venues and you want to make sure they're happy and successful while you're there. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're making the best decision for you.
If
And
you guys
I'll
haven't,
pause there for you.
if you guys haven't, if you listen weekly, but we keep saying like, communication is paramount above everything. If you're not communicating with the ownership and the management about, your happiness with the gig or like the type of gigs that they're throwing you or the money, that's where all that like resentment starts to build up. And that's where a relationship can go sour quickly and it could end badly. And there's always great ways to communicate. I mean, there's a million different ways to communicate things with people, like email or text message or phone call or have a meeting, whatever you're probably most comfortable with. And then it's also good to know how the decision maker likes to communicate as well. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Are they a phone call person? Are they a meeting person? Obviously we have our preferences, but at the end of the day, that's who's writing the paycheck. So, let's get into their comfort zone in order to do that. So yeah, like communication is such a huge part of just having any kind of successful relationship, and also in leaving a place. And hey, this is why I'm looking to take a step back from your venue. I don't like the type of gigs that you're giving me. You're giving me afternoon gigs, whereas I want to play night gigs or whatever it might be. And I think in having them know that, then like, maybe they say, okay, well, we don't want you to walk away, but you can come in next week and play this night gig, or I have this night gig a month from now. And you kind of can go from there. And if it still doesn't work out, then you walk away and say, hey, this isn't really working out for me. Just have to be transparent. I think transparency is key.
Your point on not constant, but open communication is the most important thing. And like the best, I think the point that you guys can take from this and try to implement into your DJ life immediately, because like Gary said, when you don't communicate the issues or problems, whether it's DJ equipment or the hours or the money, you do hold on to that, and you start resenting the venue and the people there. And once that starts happening, you're not going to want to be there anymore, and you're going to end up leaving. So I think, like you said, finding the way that they like to communicate, and then making an effort to communicate and set meetings or set calls or weekly texts or monthly texts, whatever it might be.
Right.
You guys need to do it. It's not the owner's job or the manager's job to say, hey, I need to talk to you. Let's set a meeting. They're busy. They're probably more busy than you. The owners are definitely more busy than you. So right. If you need to, you're there every day. The owner might not be there every day. So if you need to set a monthly meeting with that person to go over what's happened and what you want to happen next, like that's the best way to be happy and have a positive working relationship with the ownership group, or the manager, or whoever that decision maker is.
I don't think that, I think it's an overlooked part of our business, because we've said this in the past where, we're not looked at as the most like professional, it's not like the most professional profession, if you will.
Yeah.
So when you can establish those professional guidelines with the decision makers, it shines a good light on you, the employee. And then that's where, if you're not comfortable and you want to walk away, if they have that perspective on you, that you are professional, you handle yourself the right way, then it's not going to look as bad, I feel.
Right.
Because
it won't be as combative either, I don't think.
Right. It's just it'll be a less negative experience for both parties.
Right. And some of the things that, go ahead, sorry.
But if you don't have that established, then this is very well, it could be like a he said, she said, type situation.
Right. A lot of times what ends up happening is like your relationship or your gigs just start to fizzle out for whatever reason, there's a million reasons why that can happen. And sometimes we as the DJ take it personally, like, oh, we must have done a shitty job, or they don't really like me, when that's not really the case. Sometimes it could just be that there was other DJs that they were working with more regularly, or there could be a million reasons why. So that's how sometimes these things can pop up, where it's like, oh man, we haven't had, Cream, or we haven't had Gary in here a long time. Let's hit him up and see what's going on and see if we can get him back in the rotation. Maybe they lost a DJ or two. Maybe whatever. There could be a million reasons why. Maybe they have a new night they're trying to plan. And they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll bring Get Down and it'll be a good night to get them back in the mix kind of thing. So when you are leaving somewhere, like the last thing you want to do, obviously, is freak out or unplug your DJ equipment and walk out or curse somebody off or,
post something on your story on
post
Instagram.
Something on social media that's disparaging about, unless you are like legitimate, I can't even speak, legitimately disrespected or treated really unfairly or poorly. I mean, I would just bow out gracefully and wipe your hands clean and not worry about it. I mean,
I'm not sure that there's any point in time that I like really threw a venue under the bus.
We sort of did. And it was because they still owe us money. That's the only person I've ever talked shit about in a public forum ever. And we've barely done it.
Right. I mean,
we like allude to who it is, not really say who it is.
They deserve a lot more than they're getting. But even then, even like in being owed so much money, like it's just such a negative to almost your character, I feel. And the last thing you want to do is make yourself look petty. It's not a good look for you in business, because now the next venue sees that and it's a red flag, right?
Right. People don't want to work with people that are airing shit out in a public forum.
No,
we don't either. I don't want to hire DJs that are talking shit about other DJs or venues.
I've seen it happen, and I've seen it in people's stories and on people's, Instagram and whatever it might be, Twitter, and you don't want to work with those people.
Yeah.
It's just, it's too much of a, how would you say? Like, I lost the word that I want to use for it, but like,
it's just, you said it's a red flag.
It's a red flag. It's a liability.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. So yeah, having good, positive, communication and relationships and building, even when things go bad, that you don't step out of line in any way is a great way to leave on good terms. And then, because like we said, hopefully you don't know what's going to happen down the road, and hopefully they'll call you and they want to have you back if the terms are right.
Right. And I think this is a great opportunity when they come back to you to now renegotiate the terms.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
So whether that's less hours, that's definitely more money.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if they're coming back to talk to you about coming into their venue again, it's been a period of time where you've maybe reset your price, or you've started working bigger gigs, or you've put out original music and now you have a bigger name in the market. They might not know that, but you need to know your value. And if you were making $350 for 4 hours, you got to make at least $400 for 4 hours,
Right. Yeah. It is a good jumping off point for all of those conversations. Make sure you do that early and often, and make sure everybody that is a decision maker in that venue is involved in those conversations, because you don't want to. How many times have we seen it where you talk to the one owner or manager and they want to have you on, and they give you a number or hours that you're going to play, and you kind of finalize it, you start booking things, and then all of a sudden things are switched up 2 days before because the other manager or the other owner doesn't agree with these terms. So while you're doing this
all the time.
So while you're doing this, make sure all decision makers are involved. That goes from the promoters to management to ownership. Everybody needs to be looped in on it, because you don't want to be screwed over last minute. And then now it's like, well, I could have played this other gig down the block or whatever, for X amount of dollars, and now I'm getting screwed over last minute.
The easiest way to do that too.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you do go back to a venue, nothing has changed. Because it's happened.
They could talk a big talk, but it's the same old venue.
Yes. So you have to really, you just have to be very wary when you're revisiting.
You have to address all the issues that were happening prior that made you leave in the first place at that meeting. And you can say, hey, the last time I was here, we always had issues with the DJ controller, or with the speakers, or with not getting paid on time, or the hours were too long. Like, you have to have your list of grievances. You have to talk through them and come up with a new standard. And like you said, you have to have that in writing somewhere. And
Yeah.
you have to have
Yes.
it in writing with all decision makers involved. So the last thing, if you do make a deal, you say to that person that you're in the meeting with, all right, who else is involved in this decision and who else needs to know about this? Get their contact information, whether it's an email or whether it's a phone number, and create either an email chain or a text message laying out all the things that were just discussed in that meeting. And you definitely need to take notes, and you definitely need to show up with notes on all this stuff.
I was just going to say, so what you're going to do pre-meeting is come up with because sitting in the meeting, trying to come up with all the negative things that had happened to you is, number one, sometimes uncomfortable. Number two, overwhelming, and you're going to miss something. So what you're going to do prior to that meeting is prep pretty hard for it, and come up with all those things, and not just airing out those grievances, but it's also coming up with a way to fix those things. Right. So now you're presenting them with, hey, I had these issues and here's how I would like to see them fixed.
Right.
They love that stuff. Right. Oh, all right. You're looking to be a big time team player here. So this is a huge positive.
People like when you come to the table with solutions to problems, not just the problem.
Right.
Sometimes those solutions are easy.
We just had, and I'm going to just call this out real quick because we spoke about it after the meeting. We do a yearly end of year with our guys, just to kind of like review and then like to look forward to the next year. And we had Cheesy, one of our DJs on. He handles some of our New York City stuff in a big way, and he like comes to the meeting with this, like, not a PowerPoint presentation, but like he comes with like a full on list of notes, things that we can improve on, and things that the venues can improve on, and how these things can be done. And I was like, well, I feel like he was a lot more prepared for this than I was.
Real pro move, Cheese. Real pro move. I was impressed. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. We spoke about it after we got off.
That's that corporate life background. You get those quarterlies and those yearlies. You get used to doing it.
Oh man. So I just coming prepared for your initial meeting and trying to come back to a venue is so important in showing that you are providing their venue with some kind of value. This way you can now level up your pay and maybe even shorten your hours. I think it's respected from the ownership's end, and it makes your life in that meeting so much easier. Right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've only really talked about like being open to actually going back to a venue. Do you want to talk a little bit about if someone approaches you and it's just a hard no matter what, and some of those red flags? Because we've done that also.
Yeah. Well, listen, places that owe you money still, or, never paid you for a gig, obviously, like, you're not going back there.
Right. Or if there's just people that you don't want to work with or get along with, like, that's another big one. Yeah. Because maybe the manager's changed who's making decisions, but you still have to deal with someone else in the venue that's there that you didn't get along with last time, let's say, or you didn't like the way they moved or something like that.
Right. That's why you try to really, you try to, any long-term place that you're going to work at, you're trying to create those positive relationships, and
yeah, trust your gut, man. Trust your gut. If it
gets to a point where like there's somebody in the venue that like there's such a problem that you don't want to work there, like, that is when you leave initially, number one, and number two, obviously you're not going to go back.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like that's rare. Like that's such a rare occurrence.
Yeah. I think a lot of times where this does pop up is where there is one person at a venue that's either running the business into the ground or is getting complaints from other staff members.
Yeah.
And then they leave, and the staff or a manager who steps up then says, oh, well, we really liked this DJ. Why don't we bring this person back in? And then you go in and have the meeting and like, oh, well, this person doesn't work here anymore. This is the new manager. We loved when you were here last time. We want to get you back involved. Like that could always happen too. Right.
That's the hope. That's the hope when you leave a place because of a certain person. You hope that person leaves, and then you can, and it's even okay to go back. If somebody leaves a venue and you left because of that person, it's okay to go back to that venue and be like, hey, like, I left here because, you know, I didn't have a great relationship with X, Y, and Z manager. I would love to come. I love your venue, and I love the way you run it. And I'd like to get back involved. That's okay too. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any, you know, there's no shame in going back and trying to, you know,
Yeah.
rekindle a relationship with a venue.
The hardest thing to do in this situation, I think, is not taking this whole process personally, right? It's not always, it's usually not a personal thing. It's a business decision, and you guys have to be clear on that and understand that. And if you can like think in that way, you're going to be a lot more successful, because you can't take things personally. Nothing, no gig lasts forever. No residency lasts forever. Some younger DJ is going to take your spot, or some better DJ is going to take your spot. It's going to happen. So
Right.
you can't take things personally. You just have to look at it from a business perspective and bring your value to the table. And like, that's how you have to think about it. And don't think about it like, well, fuck this place because they didn't want me anymore. So like, I'm not going there. Like, don't think of it like that.
Yeah.
Does this relationship and does this venue or gig make you more money? Does it put you in a better light to get better bookings? Like, that's how you have to be thinking about it.
I think in our industry, we see people taking things to heart constantly, all the time. Oh, you had a bad set. Maybe you just had a bad day. You know,
Yeah.
maybe you were off a little bit. It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? And like, there's been plenty of times where I've definitely had to talk a DJ or two off the ledge because like the manager,
Probably me.
because the manager like didn't like the set, and it just didn't go the way it should have. Right. It's okay. It's going to happen. We're all going to have off days, and maybe you as a DJ just don't mesh with that place. It's nothing that you personally are doing, right? We're not all good at every aspect of DJing, right? Like technical side, like scratching and stuff like that, like really not go with that.
I don't think anybody's good at every aspect of
no,
this.
I really don't. And I think when you start to take things personally, like it really can wear on your ego and your confidence in the DJ booth. And I think just having a general understanding that you're not going to be good at everything is a good way to really block those negative thoughts and that negative energy out when you're entering the booth.
Yeah, I feel like this is like a whole other conversation we can get into.
It is. I don't know what struck that thought, but it is. We'll save that for another episode. Well, real quick, and this is, I'm totally going off base here, but anyways, but like Saturday, like I was like sluggish, didn't have like the energy I should have had for the gig we played together. And it just like, and I came out of it knowing like, oh, well, I didn't have the best set that I could have had, but like knowing that like, it's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
shake it off and on to the next
You
one.
had a really long day that day, number one. And then I listen, I think we still had a really great set. I think we kept people there late. I think the energy was high. I walked away from that saying like, yeah, well, maybe we didn't get as drunk as we did last time. Like that's probably part of it. But listen, yeah, man, listen, we picked each other up. I thought we had a good set, and I think we got good feedback and people liked it. So
yeah, no, the energy in the room seemed fine, but like when I was like looking for like certain records I was playing to kind of like go off, they weren't going off like I thought they should have been, and that could very well be who was in the room and not playing those records. But anyway, we're down like a rabbit hole of because we haven't had this conversation yet.
I know.
But going back to where were we at? Like we're just revisiting places that
well, yeah, you were talking about like confidence in the booth and focusing on your strengths and not the things that you can get in your head about.
Right. So I think just being able to control that it leads to just longevity at venues, longevity for your DJ career, period. Right. You just have to know that not everything's personal. I think that's what it really just comes down to.
Yeah.
Just making a note.
I'll also say this too, and we've talked about it every season, right? The end of the year is another close of another season. So great opportunity at the start of a new season. Football is almost over. You can start talking about maybe starting a Sunday party somewhere that might not have one right now or might want to rekindle one that already exists. And again, like a couple venues have already reached out to us about 2022. So you have to use this as an opportunity to try to get your foot in the door in certain places. I think, everybody's going to have these resolutions and things they want to change for 2022. And the venues think the same way, just like everybody else. So
I think
it's
right now
opportunity time.
it might not seem like the right time timing wise for the venues themselves, because there's so much holiday stuff happening. You got a lot of big days coming up, but I would just touch base with some of your ownership and some of your management and just say, like, what are we looking like in the first quarter of next year? Like, we know it slows down in January, and make sure that, like, if they're looking to move on, that you kind of have a heads up and that you're not getting slapped over the head. Or if you're looking to move on from them, at least have some courtesy to give a little bit of a heads up. Because there are going to be a lot of moving parts, like you said, in January.
Yeah.
So I think everybody needs to be either forewarned or prepped on like what the first quarter is going to look like, because it is slower. Are people going to be looking to, take some pay down a notch in January? Let's try not to let that happen. But we have seen it in the past where, gigs are going to get cut dramatically, and as far as number of gigs, not the amount of money. And just try to start to get a grasp on the first quarter, because you also want to set yourself up financially for the beginning of the year as well. You don't want to be blindsided by like taking 3 or 4 less gigs a weekend or whatever it might be, 2 less gigs a weekend, and now all of a sudden you're short on bills or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely think about that, and think about starting to just touch base with the people who are making the decisions about the entertainment in your venues.
Right. I think all these people have, like you said, so much going on right now with their businesses and also personal life, because this is a crazy time for all of us. But
yeah,
touching base, maybe if you're not going to see them for the rest of the year, wish them happy holidays, and just say, hey, I know it's crazy right now, but I would love to set up a call, a Zoom, a meeting in January or late January, however you want to put it, to just talk about whatever ideas you might have. If you want to just touch base on how things have been going, equipment, like it's a great opportunity to go and do that. And then a lot of times when you set those meetings, they'll be like, oh, well, I've been thinking about doing this party on a Monday night, or I've been thinking about doing this thing on a Saturday. And a lot of times you can churn up new opportunities just by setting those meetings, because this person, this decision maker, now has a chance to be like, oh, well, what do I need for January? Let me think about it. Maybe we do want to do a Sunday party after football and we can continue it. How do we want to brand it? What DJs want to bring in? What's the budget? What's the hours? Like, it's a great starting point.
When we generate the conversations,
we always earn business every time.
Always.
Every time. Because
not that entertainment's the last thing on their minds, but it certainly is one of the last things on their minds. So you have to constantly reiterate, like, hey, we want to generate some kind of, new business through entertainment. How can we do that? And as long as you keep bringing that up once a quarter, let's say, it starts to become a regular thought for them yearly, right? So it's like, okay, November's coming up. We got to get SantaCon out of the way, instead of dealing with all this stuff a week before.
Yeah.
Because then it's rushed and it's not done the right way, and the numbers aren't right. And so you always stay like a quarter ahead, I would say. I think that's kind of how we operate, about a quarter ahead. We try to.
Yeah. I mean, we're thinking about New Year's when football starts,
Yeah.
At least, and we're thinking about SantaCon, and we're thinking about, all this stuff, because like you said, many times the owners and managers aren't thinking about it. And if you can show value in saying, hey, SantaCon is December 18th. Have you thought about how many DJs you want? You thought about the timing? And a lot of times, if you're proactive in doing that, they'd be like, oh, actually, I haven't thought about it. What are you doing? Can you work from 3 to 8 for 500, whatever it is,
Just
owners are going to appreciate people being proactive and bringing something to the table, whether it's an idea or a party or equipment recommendations or branding, social media ideas. Like they love that stuff.
Integrating yourself with the venue as like thinking of yourself as an employee of that venue, like a regular employee of that venue. Like you don't have to be a DJ group to get to do all this stuff.
No, this is, I'm talking as an individual DJ.
As an individual, you should be taking the lead and taking care of all this stuff with management in order to make their place successful with entertainment. Because if you just sit back and wait for them to do things, nothing's ever going to get done. We've seen it time and again. You have to be proactive. And if you don't care enough about the venue to take the lead on this stuff, then you shouldn't be working there. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I think that's a great way to think about it.
I deeply, deeply care about like all the venues that I work at regularly, you know, and always have, you know, like Sona 13 was my home for 10 years, right? I took care of equipment. I took care of even booking DJs when somebody backed out at the last minute before Get Down was even a thing. Even just picked up extra gigs when people were dropping gigs, even if I had something else to do. You know, you have to really love what you're doing and love the place that you're working at. And if you don't, move on to the next place, because there's a million places and you'll just find your right fit. There's no need to feel like you're going to work every week when you're a DJ. You're supposed to be having a good time with your job.
Yeah.
So just remember, you don't have to be a DJ group to do this stuff and take the lead in venues. You should be doing it anyway. This way you become the number one DJ in that venue. And you're looked at as like, you know, the not the boss of, but like the top guy that they're going to go to for everything.
Right. So that when there is a SantaCon or New Year's Eve, they're going to ask you first, because
every one of them.
Yeah, all of them. And then you could choose where you want to work.
Right. Right. So I think that's overlooked. I think that people sometimes think that because they're not like a management company that they shouldn't. This isn't my problem. It's probably the worst way to look at anything when you're trying to when you're working. You know.
Yeah.
This isn't my problem. People aren't. You're gonna get the F out of the way because somebody else who cares more is going to take all those good gigs. You know. So. It's just a one way to look at places that you regularly play at.
I like it. I think one other thing that I'll touch on as we're talking about some of this changeover and opportunity. I think I've talked to some of our DJs and just some DJs in the market about they're getting a little frustrated because, let's say, Sundays are slowing down, or DJs are getting cut, or maybe their Saturday afternoon set is not as good as it used to be. Like, guys, it's okay. Like, it's normal. Like, don't freak out. It's not something you're doing wrong most of the time. Again, it's this transitional time, and it's not something to take personally. You take it in stride. These gigs, they'll come back. They're going to be back. Yeah. They might be gone for the rest of this season, but they'll be back at some point again in another season.
Sundays is a funny thing here. I've now been back twice in the last 3 weeks. I think it's been, and I've played my Sunday party, and I've only got through game one.
Yeah.
And like this past weekend, I could have played probably through the second game, but it wasn't enough action for me to continue. Right. So I went up to the owner and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to, save you some money, and I'm going to save me some time. And, we can cut it here. And I think there's some respect that gets built into that, where I'm not just standing there taking his money, essentially. Right. I think it's okay to do that sometimes. I understand everybody's in a different financial position. So maybe you do want to stand there and just take it if you can. But
right, like you just do your job until someone tells you to go home, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, you can, but I think as somebody who
I've done both, definitely.
Somebody who does make decisions on those things, I feel like I could take liberty on that and say, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Well, right, because we have a greater relationship and a greater deal with that particular venue. But
yeah. But
like a lot of times, if I'm the lone DJ and I'm like, all right, if you guys still want me to stay here, I'll stay for another 2 hours and make my extra money. Like, sure.
Yeah, for sure. But it's I could see where if you're a younger DJ and you played the first 8 to 10 weeks and it's been really good on a Sunday and now all of a sudden it's not good at all, where you could feel like, okay, maybe it's something I did, or maybe you're just not having a full understanding of how the season progresses.
Yeah.
It could be tricky.
One other thing too, like we're talking about taking less money for less hours. This is strictly like a Sunday thing.
Yeah.
This is not like a Saturday night thing or Friday night thing. Like this is strictly because we have a long time working relationship with this particular venue.
Right.
And this is the deal we've worked out with them. Like,
right.
I think at no point should you agree to be like, oh, I'm going to take less money to go home right now. You are going to fight like, hey, this is what you pay me to do. You're choosing to close early. Like, I'm still getting my money.
I think the way that our pay structure is there lends it to a little more.
Yeah. But the general
leniency.
bookings that you guys are taking, I would never say, never agree to that. I just want to make that clear because some people are listening and would think that we're talking about everything.
No. That's just Sundays. We're speaking specifically to football season and just how the progression of football season. And it's always like this. We always say week 8, it starts to decline. And then here we are by like week 12 and 13. And it's really starting to decline because now you have more holiday stuff that's happening. And there's just a lot more happening. People aren't as concerned about going out for football every week.
All right.
You want to?
Yeah. You want to jump to our last point here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the last thing we kind of wanted to go over is, since we're talking about, going back to venues or turning down venues or rekindling relationships, I wanted to pose the question of, have you ever regretted turning down a gig or turning down going back to a particular venue? And if so, what is it?
All right. I can speak to both of those.
Okay.
My biggest regret for turning down a gig was Pasha Basement. I was supposed to play with a friend of mine. He was an artist, a live artist, and we had played Love together, I think the week before. If anybody remembers Love nightclub in New York, it was super dope house music spot. We did a good job there. So then I guess the promoter or somebody got in touch with us and they want us to play the basement. And this like has nothing to do with like business though. And it was like an ex-girlfriend or something was like, I don't want you to play there, yada, yada, yada. I was like getting in a fight about it. And I wound up not going and playing. And then Pasha shut down like 6 months later. And I was like, that sucks because like I lived in that basement, in 99, 2000, 2001, going there as like a 17, 16-year-old.
Man, the basement at Pasha.
The base, like that was where like back in the day.
It really was a basement. Like
you were in the basement.
I mean, it was really in the basement.
Back at like when that was factory, the basement was like where you had all like the best dancers went down there. And then they played like a lot of like Afro jungle stuff. It was really dope. And then Pasha kind of carried through with that a little bit where they would play like more deep and they would be, I
feel like they had like trap shit down there sometimes too.
They mixed it up more in the later years of Pasha for sure. I know when it started back up, when like Pasha first opened, it kind of kept that Sound Factory vibe where it was underground. I mean, literally underground and then figuratively with the music. And I think it evolved as like trap music came out and electronic stuff came out. It definitely evolved. But like we were going to go in and play like this live music set. It was going to be super dope and it just didn't come to fruition. So that's my one biggest regret of turning down a gig. Going back to a place. I'm not going to call the place out, but there is a place that I had a long time residency at, and I tried to go back and play there again, and it was just like halfway through the set, I did go back and play, and I got like halfway through the set, I'm like, this is not for me, like at all, and vowed, and I closed my laptop. I'm like, I'm never coming back here again. And like,
I mean, that lends itself to our earlier conversation of like, so that's going to happen probably more often than you going back and having a good experience, right?
Yeah. Well, especially if it's like a long-term residency that you had where you had regulars come and then you kind of like, I got phased out of there. Remember on that Thanksgiving Eve?
Yeah.
That like they cut me the day before, and that was a bad experience. Still never bad-mouthed the place. Even though they did me pretty dirty after a lot of years. And then I think when you go and you move on and then you come back, you don't have those regulars anymore. You don't have that relationship with the staff
Yeah, it's
anymore.
probably all new staff.
You don't even have a
It's
relationship
like
with
a whole new place.
management. It's a whole new place. I might as well have went and played at the place that I never played at down the block, because
Right.
it's just as unfamiliar. So I think it's easy to get married to memories of a place and memories of like relationships that you had there,
Yeah.
and then be like, and the nostalgia of it, and then you go back and you play, and then you're like, oh, well, there's none of that exists here anymore. You
Yeah.
know? So that's mine.
All right. Well, mine we've talked about, I think, once or twice before on the show. So I'll keep it kind of short. But I had a run of shows with HQ2 in Atlantic City. This is more recently. So this is probably what, 3 years ago, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so.
Where I was one of the main openers for larger acts, and I really was enjoying it. It was awesome. It was kind of where I want to be and wanted to be at the time. And I had an opportunity. It was a last minute opportunity, like within 2 weeks of New Year's Eve, of going and opening for Sonnery James and Ryan Marciano. And every like being of me wanted to just say yes and take that gig. But I don't remember. I might have even been double booked that year, where I had an opening gig and then a headlining gig, and they were both already promoting me.
Yeah.
And it was within 2 weeks. And I was like, these are the places that are booking me regularly. Like, can I really bail on one of the biggest venues in my main Hoboken area to go and do this one-off? I mean, I could have, I guess, but I don't know.
I remember the phone call vividly. I don't really remember much, but I like period. But I remember that phone call vividly. And like the advice that I gave you was that you can't take the gig.
Right. I mean, I'll call it out. I was the resident at Birch every Saturday when Birch first opened.
Yeah.
And they were promoting the night already.
Right.
And I was like, what do I do? Like, if I go and explain this to Gary, he'll understand, but he's still going to be pissed, you know?
Of course. But I still think you did the right thing in that situation.
What? I've never been booked again in HQ2.
Well, we talked about that and we said, well, is it worse to never get booked at HQ again or get blackballed in the Hoboken market?
Right.
You know, it's like the tale of two cities there. Like, how are you going to, and this is somebody, and Birch and Gary and the whole family over at Hoboken Hospitality had for a long time taken care of you.
Right. It's not just been Birch. It's been like 3 venues over the years.
Right. So, and they helped the DJ Cream name evolve over time.
Yeah.
And that's the exact conversation we had. We were like, well, you know, that's burning a bridge.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in that situation, I did make the right decision, as much as I didn't want to make the right decision. But
you can regret it all day, and that's okay. But you have to know that you made the right decision.
Yeah.
There, you know, because I don't think there's coming back from that. Like 2 weeks out, New Year's, it's their big ticket night, and your name's on the flyer, and everybody knows that you're there for all the big events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your advice to? We work with a lot of younger DJs, right? A lot of up and coming DJs who have maybe not as many gigs on the books, but are still playing regularly and getting these opportunities to maybe like turn down a bar gig or a local gig to then go and take a much higher profile gig. Like, what advice would you give them to handle that? And how would you go about it? Even if it's like a within 2 week kind of thing.
I think it's quite simple, right? It comes down to you contact the person at like that bar gig or whatever, and you explain the situation of they're not going to fully understand. Not everybody fully understands like the macro of nightlife,
especially if they're not DJs.
Right. So you have to kind of walk them through why this is important for your career. Listen, it doesn't have to be this extensive conversation. Just a little 5-minute quick hitter should cover you, you know, and then explain, you know, why it's important for your DJ career. And then also maybe offer help and like, be like, hey, I have such and such DJ who's dope, and I think he'll cover your venue very well. So then not only are you explaining why it's important that you take the gig, but you're also offering to help them cover the gig that you're not going to be at. I think we all know it's pretty black and white, which gigs we should be taking and we shouldn't be taking. For younger DJs, it's a little easier because maybe they don't have this established long running relationship with a place that they're trying to then go play somewhere else.
Right.
You know, if you've only been DJing for 2 years, you don't have these, you don't have those ties like you had, where your name was attached to this one.
Right. And it's
this one
long-term
company.
relationship type thing.
Right. So it's definitely, it's going to depend on the person and the gig, but I think with a lot of these bigger gigs that our younger guys are getting, like it's very black and white from, oh, am I going to go play this place, which is like a bar lounge, or am I going to play this major nightclub? Yeah, I think that's pretty easy. But just communicate with the people that if you're going to drop their gig, you need to communicate why and then offer some kind of help in the end.
Yeah. And I think if you do end up dropping the gig, you have to be fully prepared to maybe not work at that place anymore.
Absolutely.
And that could be a repercussion to you, not doing the gig. But I think when you're a younger DJ, sometimes you have to make those decisions, and you have to take the better opportunity because maybe that better opportunity leads you down a path of faster growth,
Absolutely.
Like for you or I, like we're not growing very much anymore, right? We're not, we don't have a ton of friends and fans and people that are coming out. We do, right. But all of our friends are older and not in the clubs anymore, really, you know? But as a younger DJ, you might have that, where you have something to bring to the table where you can say, hey, I bring this many people, or I book this many tables. Like, sorry, this is kind of what I'm doing. And if you don't like it, I mean, not in these words, obviously, but if you don't like it, sorry.
Yeah.
I know what my value is, kind of thing.
Just, weighing the repercussions and weighing the positives and the negatives. And also we always say this, bounce it off somebody, talk it out. Don't make an immediate decision until you kind of really lay everything out on the table. And then, like I said, communicate with the venues in a clear way. So,
man, for not really doing much prep for an episode and just kind of showing up, this one's been pretty good, I think.
Yeah, this went a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Same.
So, I think that's a good place to end.
All right. So where are you going to be this weekend? You're still up in North Jersey and you're working some gigs. You're covering some of my gigs. I'm
covering some of your gigs. I'm doing, 626 on Friday. I will be at Birch for a bar crawl, I believe it is, on Saturday, 4 to 8. So if you're in Hoboken, come check me out at Birch. And then
I think that's going to be a good party. They're like selling tables and stuff for that too, which I just heard about.
Oh, that'll be awesome. All right.
Not to mention just all the tickets and regular people that are going to come through.
And then I'm leaving there at 8, and then I'm popping over to Ashford for 9 o'clock. So Ashford in Jersey City, 9 p.m. And then Sunday at Shepherd for football. So sweet.
I will not be here this weekend. I am going to Puerto Rico for a nice little extended weekend vacation with the wifey.
You deserve it.
We're going to hit some beach. We're going to eat a lot of good food. We're going to see Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico on Friday, which is going to be sick. So I will come back with an overview of how that goes. I'm very excited for that. You better believe La Crema is going to come back with a vengeance after this weekend. I might be speaking Spanish. You don't know.
You might be doing Latin night next Thursday.
I could. So, all right, guys. Thank you guys for checking us out as always. We appreciate you. And next week we will have a guest.
Yes.
Not sure which one, but we definitely will have a guest. So thank you guys for listening. My name is Kareem.
Gary W.
Peace out.
Peace, guys.